everyone, this is Seema Mastani. So, the reason I got inspired to hold these series of talks was because I saw a lot of parents my age with young children go through a lot of difficulty with the way they were dealing with young children. When I saw I would say like a lot of friends and family, like the nicest of people, struggle with how they were dealing with their children, and I saw like the same pattern repeating. It really broke my heart somewhere, and I wanted to spread some awareness on how can we be more conscious about how we raise our children. We're all super stressed these days, and unknowingly it does come out on our children. Obviously children need a lot of support and a lot of attention, so nobody is to blame, but the whole idea and like really my hope for these series of talks is just to spread more awareness, because if we can build a little more awareness into how we are behaving with ourselves, with our children, we can slowly start to create a better world. So the first person who we have is Seema Umar. Seema is a counselor. She has been working with children, young adults, parents, teachers, and caregivers in one-to-one sessions and in groups. She uses creative modalities of art, clay, drama, sand tray, music, play, storytelling in her work. And I love how she teaches self-compassion in parenting and self-compassion as a mindful way of building inner resilience in people and interconnectedness in communities. So to start with, I wanted to talk about parental stress, and how you have seen this, play out in relationships with children.
I think the world is stressed, just like you said, Seman. And a lot of the time, we don't know that we are stressed. We don't have an awareness of it here, but we are holding it in our bodies. And when we are not aware of it, it automatically just gets passed on to the others around us. So it gets passed on to our children. But if we can know that we are stressed, that it's a stressful time for the whole world, and if we can give ourselves some help, then it won't get passed on to our children.
And how would you describe compassionate parenting?
I would describe it as, um, giving myself room to make mistakes. Each family is unique, each dyad, each relationship between two people, even within a family, is very unique, and there's really no formula. And we learn as we do it, as we let ourselves do it, and as we make mistakes. So to really be compassionate with ourselves first.
Yeah, because even as a young mother, I feel like with more information there, there's also more pressure because you have
Yes.
so much knowledge, and like I remember as a parent, like we're thinking about what we are feeding our children, how much TV are they watching. Like I feel like almost like now there's more pressure on the mother to do everything in the right way, that like it builds on to the stress. Yeah.
Which wasn't there in previous generations.
Yeah.
That's true. And while the information is helpful, I really think that we we do have an instinct. We do have an instinctive way of um, parenting well. It's also a lot of, I think, the kind of pressure to succeed in other things generally, to go forward, to do something really well, to get recognition, to earn more, all of those pressures, to be any, whether it's to be a good daughter or a good daughter-in-law, or to even at your work, to do everything really well. That pressure is much more now, and it rubs off onto parenting as well. I want to be the perfect parent, but actually, as you know, that works against us in a lot of ways, in every way, and also in our parenting. They say attachment is a very important theory in raising children. And attachment is to put it very, very simply, it's the sense of safety that children have with the adults around them, particularly their primary caregivers. And when there's a rupture in that attachment, when we make a mistake, when the parent makes a mistake, and the child doesn't feel safe for any reason, actually that doesn't hamper the attachment. It's when we don't make amends, when we don't reinstate safety with the child, that's what affects the strength of the attachment. And research has shown that when we make a mistake and when we repair with a child, when we re-establish safety, actually that process of re-establishing safety makes the child feel much safer and makes that bond between parent and child much stronger.
Wow, so it's like we all make mistakes, but what do you do after that event has happened? And how do you reestablish safety in those circumstances where you've acted out of stress or anger? What can you do?
To really see it, to forgive yourself, and then take some time to see it from the view of the child and say that that must have been really hard for you, that must have been scary for you, and I'm really, really sorry. I had a really tough day at work, and I'm sorry. It could be that, or it could be something really simple like screaming at a child who's about to put their fingers into the electrical socket, yeah, and you've screamed and said, "Don't do that," and the child obviously has got scared. And you say, "I was so scared because that's dangerous. I needed you to be safe, and that's why I shouted so loudly because I needed you to stop, to not do that. And I'm really sorry. That must have been so scary. You haven't seen me shout like that. And I'm really, really sorry. Can you draw and show me what that moment was like for you?" So you really help them to process and express what it was like for them.
So really, like, what even started these conversations was like me seeing even doctors like hitting their children, like, and just 5 year old, and then like when I spoke to them because I had just seen this film on wisdom of trauma, and I was like, this creates trauma in children, like it's gonna affect them for the rest of their life, and their thinking was they're good people. I'm not saying they're bad people, but their thinking was that in the Caucasian or the white conditioning, hitting creates trauma, but in the Asian conditioning, like hitting children is a form of discipline, and it doesn't create trauma as much. So I just wanted to know, like, what do you feel about that, and what does hitting children do?
You know, uh, the cultures of the East and the West are different, but for me, parenting is a very basic phenomenon which I have found to be universal across the world. And I think that apart from the physical pain that hitting causes, I think the the most dangerous thing about hitting is that when we hit somebody, we don't see them as a person. They become a thing. And when we treat children as objects, on a very deep level, they see themselves as objects. They see that their body doesn't belong to them, it belongs to somebody else to do with whatever they want. And actually, these are the children that then become very, very vulnerable to abuse, to any kind of physical, sexual abuse, because on a very deep level, they learn that my body is not mine. And people who target children for abuse have a very acute, they can smell this out. They know uh, which children are vulnerable, and we make them very, very vulnerable when we uh, hit them, when we objectify them.
So how do you discipline children? Is is disciplining children the right way to go about it? How?
Discipline is of course, children need guidance, and of course, children need freedom. They need to be able to make choices. They also need to know what's not okay. And have to keep them safe, and that kind of the limits change as they grow older. uh, but for example, time out became a very popular strategy a few years ago, where, to discipline a child, we will tell them to stand in the corner. But actually, when children are acting out, when children are behaving in a way that's not convenient for us for any reason, they're actually telling us something. They're telling us that they need something. And the needs of children, as described by in a very simple parenting book called Say What You See by Sandra Blackard. She says that children need three things: they need connection, they need experiences, and they need a sense of power, autonomy over their own body and life. And children will uh, behave in difficult ways when they are one of those three needs is not met. Often, along with the other two needs, it's a need for connection. So then, by sending them to the corner by themselves, we're actually depriving them of something that they need so strongly. So there's another book which I read, and I don't remember the author. He calls it time in parenting, where when a child is being troublesome, where you bring the child with you to the couch, and you have time in with the couch, with the child on the couch, and say, yeah, that's something's going on for you, and it's possible that you're not clear about it, and you kind of you offer them what they need.
If it's the connection, and if they want your connection, then you give them a lot of connections because that's what they are looking for.
At the same time, you can lay down the rules, as for example, people are not for hitting, or I don't like when you tell grandma that you didn't like her gift, for example. I mean, it could be anything from little things to big things. Yeah. uh, yeah, I need you to exercise some self control. uh, but the chances of that reaching the child is much more likely when they feel safe and connected.
Thank you. And then the other thing I also came across was that, like, it's okay to hit boys. Boys need a different way of parenting than girls. So, like, yeah, I really, that's the reason I want to talk about these things, so that, yeah, so do boys need a different style of parenting than girls? Or is it that boys are generally more aggressive than girls? Is there a difference in that? Yeah.
There's a beautiful, again, a book called Playful Parenting that I read by Lawrence Cohen, where he says that, this whole stereotyping of girls playing with Barbie dolls and boys playing with guns and things like that, he says we need to break that stereotype. Um, what I am finding is that in this whole process of empowering girls, the boys have got left by the wayside. We've forgotten what our boys need. Uh, I think emotional validation and support children need, regardless of gender. And if anything, I think we need to teach our boys to be a little more gentle and encourage their feminine side and their emotional side. And we need to kind of get women in touch with girls, in touch with the masculine in them, and for them to be able to voice themselves, to be that little bit stronger. So I see it as that balance, where whether it's boys or girls, they're in touch with both sides of their nature.